Ghana and Niger established legal framework for trade and investment for the first time in 30 years.
Vice President mourns with family of late Captain Maxwell Adam Mahama.
GBC annual political dialogue series discusses rise of vigilante groups and mob action.
Good evening and welcome to News Hour live on GBC24 and Ghana Television. My name is Emmanuel Amagashi.
And I am Thelma Taki. With us to translate the news into sign language is Robert Frimpong Manso. Our first story, Ghana and Niger have established a permanent joint commission of cooperation on trade and investment.
This is the first time in 30 years that the two countries have established a legal framework to back trade and investment. During a visit to Niger, President Akufo-Addo and his Nigerian counterpart, Mamadou Issoufou, pledged to strengthen ties between the two countries.
President Akufo-Addo's visit to Niger ends the third phase of his tour of countries in the sub-region. Niger is one of the top 5 producers of uranium worldwide, and over 2/3 of its foreign revenue is from exports. The country is also rich in gold, iron, tin and oil. President Akufo-Addo said Ghana and Niger need to share ideas on value addition to the natural resources for the benefit of people in both countries. He urged his counterpart to help in the advocacy for implementation of the ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme, which is expected to eliminate the impediments and challenges associated with free movement of goods, persons and services in the region.
The second issue is about this very important matter that has been assigned to President Issoufou and myself, and that is to develop a strategy for the application and coming into force of the common mandate of the ECOWAS community. It's absolutely critical for the future of the community, if indeed it is to be successful, that we do have a single currency within the ECOWAS community. I'm sure that both of us have recognized the importance of this assignment, and that therefore we are going to work on it with all the necessary seriousness and dispatch to make the proposals that will make it a reality.
President Akufo-Addo promised to support Niger in her fight against terrorism.
The fight of Niger is not just for Niger, but it is for the entire community of West Africa. So that whatever within the modest means that Ghana has at its disposal to assist in this undertaking, we are going to do so.
President Akufo-Addo asked Niger to support Ghana develop her agriculture sector.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci. The Vice President, Dr. Mamadou Bawumia, says the government will soon roll out a first-class digital addressing system in Ghana. Dr. Bawumia disclosed this at the 10th anniversary commemoration of the Ghana Interbank Payment and Settlement Systems, GIPS. GIPS was established to facilitate payments among the banks in the country. Dr. Bawumia said this at the mobile interoperability in the financial sector will position Ghana as a preferred destination for investment. The Ghana Interbank Payment and Settlement Systems, GIPS, has the mandate to implement and manage interoperable payment system infrastructures for banks and non-bank financial institutions in Ghana. GIPS, which started in 2007 with a transaction value of 3.8 million Ghana cedis, has increased its transaction to 48 billion cedis in the first quarter of 2017. Aside this, GIPS has implemented and currently manages the National Switch and Biometric Smart Card Payment System, eSwitch, the check code line clearing and automated clearinghouse systems. On its 10th anniversary, the Chief Executive of GIPS, Mr. Archie Hesse, said despite the challenges that greeted the introduction of the system, it can now be counted as one of the fastest growing payment systems in the world.
Interbank Instant Pay is the order of the day. VocalLink in England led the way. They deployed it in Singapore and are about to deploy it in the US. In Africa, Nigeria took the first stand, I think, 2 years ago. Now in Ghana, we also have interbank instant pay. It only takes 40 seconds for funds to be transferred from one bank to another.
Representing the Ghana Association of Bankers, Mr. Prince Kofi Amoabeng lauded the contribution of the system to the banking industry. He further called for close collaboration between GIBS and the banks going forward. The first Deputy Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Mr. Millicent Nar, urged financial institutions in the country to build solid IT platforms because the growth of GIBS over the period indicates that the system will further improve. The Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, said the government is initiating steps including the digitized addressing system to improve the environment of doing business.
I have asked them to ensure that our financial system is totally interoperable, and I'm glad to say that they are on course. The last time I checked how they were doing, they gave me the assurance that they are on course and they will realize the goal of interoperability by November this year. So I will hold you to that.
He charged GIBS to continue to roll out initiatives that will transform the country's payment system.
The next decade should see complete transformation of this country's payment system and radically changes how payment is done from the mall to the market. Financial inclusion should be optimal, and the majority of us should be using electronic payment channels regularly. After 60 years of independence, it can no longer be business as usual. We must all roll up our sleeves and work to transform our country.
GIBS appealed to Ghanaians to accept the various electronic payment platforms in the system and in order to drive Ghana's march towards cashless society.
The Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, has commiserated with the family of the late military officer, Captain Maxwell Adam Mahama. Captain Maxwell was murdered at Dentra Boase in the Central Region. Dr. Bawumia assured the family of the late captain of the state's commitment to ensure that the perpetrators of the crime are brought to book. On Monday, the entire nation was thrown into a state of shock when disturbing videos of the lynching of military officer Captain Maxwell Adam Mahama surfaced on social media, showing his final moments at the hands of an angry mob. The gruesome murder was greeted with public outcry, with many Ghanaians calling for justice for the late soldier. As tradition demands, the Vice President visited the family of the late Captain Maxwell Mahama at the Burma camp in Accra to commiserate with them over the loss of their son, husband, friend and colleague. The Chief of Defence Staff, Lieutenant General Obed Akwa, said the late captain was officially deployed by the Military High Command to the area to carry out operations. Therefore, reports that they were protecting Galamsey operatives are untrue.
I would like to disabuse the minds of the general populace that they were there undertaking or protecting illegal mining. That is the first important point I'd like to make. Secondly, yesterday, I dispatched the Chief of the Army Staff, the GOC Southern Command, together with other officers of the Ghana Armed Forces, and also our counterparts from the police service, to go and undertake some investigations on ground. They've come up with their reports, which we are going to look very carefully and help in the implementation. I also want to seize this opportunity to thank all officers and men of the Ghana Armed Forces for the restraint that they have exhibited in the face of this provocation. A new image of the Ghana Armed Forces is being carved.
The spokesperson for the late Captain Maxwell Mahama's family appealed to the government and the Military High Command to ensure that justice is duly served.
Your Excellency, you bear with me that where we are coming from, our dead, we preserve our dead to extend that we don't want anybody to even see the nakedness of our dead. But it's rather unfortunate the state did not give us that requisite to prevent it from circulating. And to make matters worse, the utterances of the DC is even killing us more. It's not helping the situation.
Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia expressed condolences to the family and assured them that the murderers will be made to face the full rigors of the law.
It's a criminal act, what happened. There's nothing short of it is criminal, and we will pursue the perpetrators with all the might of the state to its logical conclusion to make sure that justice is done. The President has asked me to extend his condolences, and you will see him in due course. You are in heavy pain. Sitting here, we are in pain, but we cannot even imagine the pain that the family is in. All our funeral is Ghana. It's not just this family. Everywhere, every village, every town, they are talking about what has happened. So you are not alone. And you will not be alone.
Dr. Bawumia also assured the family of the late Captain Mahama of a befitting burial and pledged the state's readiness to cater for the wife and the 2 children.
Meanwhile, the family of Captain Maxwell Mahama, who was killed by a mob at the Nchoboase in the central region, has called for swift justice in bringing the perpetrators of that heinous crime to book. An uncle of the deceased, Dr. Fred Makbongoluri, says even though the manner in which Captain Mahama was murdered was cruel, the way to go is not retaliation. He says the incident should lead to an immediate national dialogue on justice delivery and mob justice. Dr. Makbongoluri denied claims that Captain Mahama was protecting Galamsey operators or that he had lost his way and was asking for direction. According to him, Captain Mahama was officially assigned to the area as part of the National Security Task Force on Galamsey.
And still on that subject, the Ghana Armed Forces has said it has no intention of carrying out reprisal attacks. However, the security forces have called on members of the community to provide information about the culprits behind the murder of Captain Maxwell Mahama last Monday.
Now, away from that story, the Deputy Minister for the Interior, Mr. Henry Korte, says vandalism during political transitions and activities of vigilante groups in the country must be condemned. According to him, persons who are found culpable in such acts must be dealt with irrespective of their party affiliations or status. Mr. Henry Korte was speaking at the annual political dialogue series organized by the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation and the West African Center for Counter-Extremism. The program was under the theme, The Challenges of Vigilante Groups in Ghana.
This year's edition of the Political Dialogue Series is dubbed The Challenges of Vigilante Groups in Ghana. In attendance were lawmakers, security experts, policy analysts, civil society groups, and reps from the international community. In their presentations, the speakers condemned the act of instant justice and vigilante groups that are a threat to national security.
I wish to state the fact that as far as the Ministry of the Interior, and for that matter, officialdom is concerned, none of the purported vigilante groups has been registered and licensed to perform the supposed security work. Any person, group of persons, association found to be engaged in acts that will undermine the country's internal security will be dealt with according to the laws of the country, irrespective of the party, the person, or association is perceived to belong.
The conduct of the 2016 elections and the transfer of power
from the incumbent to the opposition, actually shows the extent to which we have the potential to do what is right if we want to do it. However, the incidences of violence that have characterized such processes pose a threat, and I will add an existential threat, not only to our democracy, but to this country as a whole.
These groups are hurting the peace of Ghana, the stability we enjoy as a nation, the unity, the cohesion, and our democratic and development. It is a shame we are 60 years, we've entered the 6th decade of our existence, and the vigilante forces or groups are seeking to disintegrate us. They are seeking to dismember Ghana, and we must all sit up and take action.
The Director General of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, Dr. Kwame Ekufu-Anofento, called on all to help in the fight against galamsey.
On a regular basis, we are told about degrading acts to our environment by people whose singular purpose is to create wealth for themselves at the expense of the rest of us and posterity. Galamsey, as this despicable act has become known, still serves as a blot on our collective national conscience, and we should, rightly, rise to the occasion to address the menace.
The Executive Director of the West African Center for Counter-Extremism, WATI, Mr. Mutaru Mumuni Mukhtar, called on stakeholders to quickly pool resources to help curb the existence of vigilante groups in the communities. Back to our earlier story where the Ghana Armed Forces has said it has no intention of carrying out reprisal attacks.
The community where the incident has happened has completely been vacated except the few who were arrested. Out of those, we have been able to identify 2 or 3 who may have been directly involved in the incident, and we've handed them over to the police. My hope is that this police will work on this one very speedily so that we can get to the bottom of the matter. But it's obviously one of sadness, a sad day for the Ghana Army, and I think it should be a sad day for the community here too.
But who the video bitch them no ni pakro no womu a me hu na betumi appoint ne say ni pakro ni nie e bisa me pe no sa omu nya mu wo mu di video ni ye nyina ye se ni mo mu eni tu no mo jaye no omu nyina mo dwane de wo ne yere ni nua ne ba de betumi say me say bi asa me nua be ma bi ka ho a se ko baba be fa me akọ ha sa na de na kwa akoye de mo ko no mo no mo busu nyina ne yere ne ba no mo ko no mo jaye wo ha ya ye ni mo ho hwe no mo jaye wo.
Now, the police has intensified their operations to prevent any reprisal attacks at Somanya in the Ilo Krobo municipality of the Eastern region following the recent riots in the area. The Municipal Security Council, MUSEC, has also called for restraint as the appropriate bodies investigate the matter.
Calm has returned to Somanya in the Ilo Krobo municipality. There is heavy security presence in the area, especially at places that recorded some form of attacks. Reinforcement teams from the formed police unit in Accra and Kufodia were on hand to beef up security. At the time GBC24 visited, a changeover was underway by the Kufodia teams. The police have given the assurance that they will be on hand until the situation normalizes. The recent disturbances at Somanya began here at this block factory. It is alleged that the owner, Mr. Jones Adamte, who is also the assemblyman for Sawe electoral area, masterminded the riots. According to the locals, the electricity company disconnected power from Mr. Adamte's home and the block factory and removed the meters for default payment. The assemblyman then mobilized some youth to protest what he claimed were high and outrageous tariffs being charged. What was meant to be an interrogation at the ECG office ended up in a scuffle. The offices were vandalized and some workers allegedly pelted with stones last Friday. This was the outcome of the escalation. On Monday, Mr. Jones Adamte was arrested and sent to Kofodia for interrogation over the disturbances. Not knowing his whereabouts, the locals stormed the ECG offices again and later turned their anger on the police, who had turned up to control the situation. They took advantage of the absence of police at the station to destroy every property on site. They also freed 4 suspects from lawful custody.
2 at Alabatu have reported themselves to police. So we have Tetemate at large and Kosiamakun, AK Nana Tumpuni, a notorious criminal in town. So we're looking for them. If they either report themselves to police or we also go for them. For now, look at the nature of our service. We have to reinforce it to come to normal.
For now, a high-level meeting of traditional rulers, security personnel, the municipal assembly and some youth of the community was held behind closed doors to urgently bring the matter to a closure. At a news briefing, the leaders condemned the attacks and said efforts are underway to bring sanity to Somanya.
Currently, it is happening at Somanya, but if we don't take care, it will spread to the other outlying areas near Somanya. So a lot of effort will be put in to stop it before it gets too late. So long as the effort to pacify the situation is concerned, we should not expect any more violent actions or unlawful behavior until the matter is finally laid to rest.
Representatives of the youth also apologized for their actions and appealed for the release of their members.
The leadership of this group didn't envisage or they could not foresee any of the members of this group going beyond the normal objective I wished on behalf of the Yilo Krobo youth and the people of Krobo. Apologize to the powers that be, that they should forgive us.
Meanwhile, no official from the ECG attended the meeting.
It's still news hour on GBC24 and still to come. Government will soon issue a $2.5 billion bond to retire the energy sector debt of $2.4 billion.
We have put in place measures to reduce the fiscal deficit bequeathed to us from 9% in 2016 to 6.5% this year.
And Kenya opens a new $3.2 billion railway line between the port city of Mombasa and the capital, Nairobi.
Hello, good evening, and many thanks for joining us for some business updates brought to you by NIB and Ernest Chemist. I'm Dorothy Ajimai. Government is to issue a $2.5 billion bond to retire the $2.4 billion legacy debt in the energy sector. This is expected to create space for the government and attract the needed investment into the energy sector. Speaking at the 2017 Development Finance Forum of the World Bank in Accra, President Akufo-Addo has assured investors that Ghana is open for business. The president also gave an assurance of creating a conducive environment for businesses to thrive for mutual benefit.
Billions of dollars are underinvested in developed world and are therefore seeking higher returns. There is little or no link to the major demand of capital in the least developed countries. Economic growth is a major setback in least developed countries and is expected to remain below the Sustainable Development Goals target of 7% in the near future. It is expected a much closer collaboration between the public and private sectors can help release untapped private finance for investment in key growth areas such as infrastructure, energy, and agribusiness. Again, scarce concessional resources can attract higher levels of private investment to the least developed countries, especially in addressing risk-return concerns and aligning the public and private sectors around shared objectives and ideals. This is the focus of the 2017 Development Finance Forum held in Accra by the World Bank and the African Center for Economic Transformation. Job creation was also high on the agenda, but this time, the drive is to use the private sector as a vehicle to enable the continent meet the SDGs by 2030. This year's forum hinges on the theme unlocking private investment in African markets.
The purpose of this year DFF is there to come up with creative and concrete ideas to unlock and spur private investment in the African markets. They do not happen, however, without alignment of public and private interests.
President Nana Akufo-Addo called for the strengthening of public and private sector cooperation to improve the economies of Africa. President Akufo-Addo reiterated that from September this year, clearing of goods at the port of Ghana will be 100% paperless. He said all internal barriers will be removed to facilitate movements of goods and services.
My government has established a macroeconomic framework with policies that seek to restore fiscal discipline and macroeconomic stability. We have put in place measures to reduce the fiscal deficit bequeathed to us from 9% in 2016 to 6.5% this year. Government has created fiscal space by capping earmarked funds to 25% of government revenues and realigning expenditures to government priorities. This is a policy that successive governments have tried over several years to implement, but were unable to do. To boost growth, we have reorientated fiscal policy from a focus on taxation to a focus on production.
This is the third time Development Finance Forum is being organized by the World Bank Group and the first on the African soil.
The traditional sources of funding for Africa is either through aid or multilateral institutions, including the World Bank and the IMF. But these funds are gradually dying up, and there is a consensus that now the way out is for Africa to reach out to private investors to spur on economic growth through small and medium-scale enterprises, SMEs. The panelists at the Africa Financing Forum in Accra include the Chief Executive Officer of Dangote Group, Alhaji Aliko Dangote, Managing Director of Outreach International, Helen Tanoy, Minister for Finance, Mr. Ken Oforiatta, and the World Bank's Group Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Joachim Levy.
I think the smaller businesses, alongside the businesses required to really build capacity and to put funds into African economy.
Credit enhancement by the government. We have something like what we do in Nigeria, where the central bank will guarantee for you to have a single-digit interest rates. You know, so money that they've taken away from the banks, in terms of putting it in their reserves, earning zero interest, they can lend you. They don't lend you directly, but they lend you through the, bankers. So I think, if they also make sure that the policy is there, there's consistency of policy, it will help. But the biggest of them all, most of these small businesses can never ever survive without a stable power.
We are currently trying, or have been trying, to develop a power project in South Sudan. If anywhere needs power, it's South Sudan. But I can't send people there if I think they're in danger. So I'm afraid that project is on hold.
We come back to the issue of power, as Aliko is saying. And it's on two levels, in terms of how we have mismanaged it, and also not looked at a renewable option. So as the President said, we're trying to clear the backlog so that we can get back into some decency as to how we negotiate these contracts and ensure that there's stable power for everybody. So that's the power issue on the megawatt side. Then I think we have a power issue of the empowerment of our people and the economy to be able to make sure that we realize the objectives that we have.
We have recently signed an MOU in terms of also of helping to disseminate the international financial reporting standards, the IFRS, to small and medium companies. Also, for instance, the agricultural sector, to facilitate access through blending mechanisms to lower interest rates, and also develop de-risking mechanisms.
The youth form the majority of the populace in Africa. As at 2015, Sub-Saharan Africa had 193 million people between the ages of 15 and 24 to harness the potentials of the youth from the ECOWAS region. Young entrepreneurs met in Accra to deliberate on how to channel their energies to help push forward the economic development of the region.
The United Nations estimates that by 2035, Sub-Saharan Africa will have 295 million youth, and by 2050, 362 million. Each year between 2015 and 2035, there will be 500,000 more 15-year-olds than the year before. At a forum organized by the Mandela Washington Fellowship on promoting youth employment in West Africa, Dr. Patrick Ewuwa, president of Ashesi University, called on leadership in Africa to operate with the goal of ensuring that African youth can compete at par with the rest of the world.
You travel around most African countries today, you have mobile telephony services reaching the most remote villages across a continent. But the infrastructure, the equipment that enables that, the cell towers, the radio equipment, the generators, none of that was designed and built in Africa. So the value chain of mobile telephony, we have not fully captured. We captured a small part of it, and we're happy about it.
A consultant on UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network, Madame Uri Traore, urged governments to recognize that the youth are a vital resource for development.
When you have half of the population, of your population, they are women, half, or even slightly half, that's half of your potential. So if half of your potential are not being used, how can you possibly develop?
A representative from the Ministry of Finance, Mr. Louis Amu, advised the participants not to see capital as a hindrance to doing business, but rather should inculcate the habit of savings. The Vice President of Global Programs, Mr. Taleb Sahab, said creating an enabling environment for the youth in Africa to contribute towards development is a sure way to translating the Sustainable Development Goals rolled out by the UN into reality.
You're watching News Hour live on GBC24 and GTV, and this is the business segment. On interbank market today, the dollar is trading at 4 cedis 30 pesos, the pound at 5 cedis 53 pesos, and the euro is also trading at 4 cedis 80 pesos. Up next is the board. On the commodities board, a barrel of oil is selling at $49 and cocoa at $2,041 a ton. Gold is also selling at $1,263 an ounce. And that's it for the business segment, brought to you by NIB and Ernest Chemist. Health segment is next. Please do stay.
Welcome to the health segment brought to you by Yamvita and FPAC. Today is World No Tobacco Day. The day is set aside by the World Health Organization and the Ghana Health Service to highlight the health and additional risk associated with the use of tobacco. It is also to advocate for effective policy to reduce tobacco consumption. The day is dubbed Tobacco, a Threat to Development.
Has been enshrined in the Sustainable Development Agenda as one of the most effective means to help achieve SDG Target 3.4 of a one-third reduction globally by 2030, reduce premature deaths from non-communicable diseases, NCDs, including cardiovascular diseases, cancers, and chronic heart disease. Health experts say tobacco control can break the cycle of poverty, contribute to ending hunger, promote sustainable agriculture and economic growth, and combat climate change. This year's World No Tobacco Day campaign highlighted the links between the use of tobacco products, tobacco control, and sustainable development. The World Health Organization has called on all countries to prioritize and accelerate tobacco control efforts as part of their responses to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development.
Good evening, let's talk sports. I'm Theophilus Samba, kicking off on a footballing note where 16 players were present at the Accra Sports Stadium to start the first training session for the Black Stars. The team have started preparations for their triple header in June against Ethiopia in the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations qualifier, as well as friendlies against the USA and Mexico. All 7 home-based players took part in the training session. Assistant Captain Andre Ayew and Brother Jordan were present. Manchester City forward Yao Yeboah, Thomas Ejapon, Ifri Akwa, and Frankie Champon were also present. First Assistant Coach Ibrahim Tanku, Technical Coordinator Stephen Apia, and Goalkeepers Trainer Richie Dolele Kinson were on hand to offer Kwesi Apia a fair start in his training session. The training continues tomorrow. Away from football, 5 Ghanaian arm wrestling referees have been elevated to the status of senior officials, whilst 12 have been licensed by the Africa Arm Wrestling Federation. This was after they successfully completed a technical seminar in Accra. These are the 17 new referees certified by the Africa Arm Wrestling Federation. With this certificate, they will be able to officiate in any sanctioned competition by the Africa body and the world at large. For the past 5 days, these referees and coaches drawn from the security services, tertiary institutions, clubs and regions have undergone an intense practical and theoretical session under the strict supervision of the head of refereeing and technical director of the Ghana Arm Wrestling Federation, Mr. Yusuf Neza. Mr. Neza commended the Federation for the fast rate of development of the sports in the country.
People would like to develop very fast, think in a good way. I found very, very strong athletes. I am sure within 2 or 3 years, Ghana arm wrestling players will be not only an African champion, maybe a world champion.
The president of the Ghana Arm Wrestling Federation, Mr. Charles Osei, described the course as timely.
The good news is that we have 24 referees coming from the security services, clubs and schools. We're going to send them all over the country, and we'll make sure that promotion of arm wrestling, development of arm wrestling will run very fast. The plan is that in less than 5 years, arm wrestling should be next to football.
Some participants shared their experience.
I thought arm wrestling was just something with strength that you can do at any place. But when he came, he gave us the knowledge of what to do, not knowing there are rules and fouls. Any little mistake can go against you and a whole lot. He has really taught us a lot, and I've really learned a lot.
The 5-day certification program was sanctioned by the World Arm Wrestling Federation, WAF, and the African Arm Wrestling Federation. It was fully sponsored by the Ghana Arm Wrestling Federation. That's all for sports.
Hello, good evening. Time for the art segment brought to you by Cowbell. My name is Valerie Danso. Anthony Aka, known as Akablé, is the composer of the hit song Takeaway featuring Kaboom. Akablé says musicians do not have to use profanity to get a hit song. The arts desk caught up with the guitarist earlier.
Akablé started doing music as early in the primary school. After school, he took music seriously and was trained by master guitarist Pa Joe, who led him to play in Jewel Aka's band and taught him the rudiments of music. He started off as a drummer but later switched to the guitar. Akablé says the new crop of musicians can make music devoid of profanity.
Ladies and gents, are you ready now? We are taking the girls away. Ladies and gents, are you ready now? We are taking the girls away. We are taking the girls away. We are taking the girls away. Ladies and gents, are you ready now? We are taking the girls away. I feel happy when I see the youth sing this song every day, every night, at so many occasions. Okay. And I mean, also it's good for them also to know that, I mean, you don't have to sing profane, you don't have to use profane words in your music for people to enjoy it.
When asked which hip life artist he admires the most, this is what he had to say.
My favorite is Pragmatic. He is very disciplined. Okay. In terms of everything, he's always on time. I mean, I don't have words to describe him.
Oh, wow.
He is one fantastic boy that I will always mention him everywhere I am.
He told us why he would never make a detour from high life.
I have one good song that is my musicians call it rock, but I believe it's high life.
Okay.
Yeah, because...
What's the title of that song?
It's called Sunshine High Life.
His latest project would be with his fans on Saturday, the 3rd of June 2017.
My birthday is just around the corner on the 3rd of June, that is Saturday. And I'm having a bash at the Champs.
Inside the Champs bar?
Exactly. But on the Friday, I'm bringing my musicians and any other musicians who want to come with us for them to acquaint themselves with those people, the groups and the individuals who put Ghana on the world market or world map in terms of music, high life. We are taking the girls away.
Ridomel Gold Plus. Spraying technique. Spray your cocoa pods with Ridomel Gold Plus to protect your harvest from black pod. To get a good harvest, you should use Ridomel Gold Plus every 4 weeks from the start of the rainy season until September. The best time to spray Ridomel Gold Plus is early in the morning before 11 a.m. Later in the day, the change in wind direction may blow the Ridomel Gold Plus away from the pods and pollute the person spraying. Spray the Ridomel Gold Plus onto the cocoa pods. Spray each pod from the top of the tree to the bottom of the tree. When you have sprayed all the pods on the tree, move on to the next tree until you have sprayed all the trees on your farm. Remember to use 150-gram sachet of Ridomel Gold Plus per each tankful of water and 6 50-gram sachet of Ridomel Gold Plus for every acre of your cocoa farm.
Keep watching the weather report and do have a splendid evening.
Before we go and look at the closing headlines. For the first time in 30 years, Ghana and Niger have established a permanent joint commission of cooperation on trade and investment. This established a legal framework to back trade and investment between the two countries. This was during President Akufo-Addo's visit to Niger, where he conferred with his Nigerian counterpart, Mamadou Issoufou, on ways to strengthen bilateral ties.
The Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, has visited the family of the late military officer, Captain Maxwell Adam Mahama, to commiserate with them. Captain Mahama was lynched by an angry mob at Dentroboase in the central region. The Vice President assured the family of the state's commitment to seek justice by ensuring that all those who committed the heinous act will face the full rigors of the law.
The Ghana Broadcasting Corporation and the West African Center for Counter-Extremism have held the annual political dialogue series in Accra. This year's discussion centered on the rise of vigilance, and this is where we part company. Thank you so much for your time. We are back at 10.